Hello there, this is Patrick Velasquez, CEO of Superpowered, and Gabor Santos, CTO of Superpowered. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to wait just a few moments for the rest of the folks who are not quite as punctual as you all to join us, and we're going to dive right into things. We'll just take one moment. In the meantime, you can see our email address and our Twitter handles as well if you guys need to get in touch with us. We'll just wait one moment here, and then we will get started.
What if we do a quick test? There is this wave feature of the webinar, and let's just ask the folks to wave us so we can see that everything is working properly. Where can I see Zoom? Where's my Zoom?
Yep,
raise hand. Yeah. They can hear us.
Perfect. So
awesome.
Great. So you guys could, in theory, are looking at the at our keynote right now.
Yep. All right.
Great. So we'll get started right now. So as I said, my name is Patrick Velasquez. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Superpowered. Next to me is Gabor Santo, also co-founder and CTO. So thank you for joining us today. Real quick, our agenda for today. We're going to do a brief introduction to what is Superpowered, what we do now, where we're going. For those of you who aren't familiar with our technology or aren't currently clients, then Gabor will take over, talk about the current state of WebAudio, where we see it going, why we think WebAssembly is very important. We'll talk about exactly which features we'll be making available this summer. We'll do a quick demo and a timeline. Talk about licensing for the beta, and then we'll please save your questions to the very end. We're more than happy to answer any and all questions you may have, be they technical or otherwise, but let's keep them all at the very end and we'll try to get to those. So without further ado, we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. So Superpowered is kind of going kind of a change right now. We started out primarily in audio. In fact, we're most well known for our work in audio, low-level DSP. We will be launching in the next few weeks also networking and cryptographics SDKs, but the thrust is still the same. We want to build very high-performance interactive audio-centric applications from one API and make that technology available on mobile, so native apps, desktop, embedded devices, and of course today's topic, the web. So you're going to be hearing more about networking cryptographics from us on our email list soon, but that is not the subject of today's webinar. We will be talking exclusively about what we're bringing to the web. For those of you not familiar with our audio offering, it's the Superpowered Audio SDK, and it's made up of 6 components. We've got an audio players, we have decoders, a slew of effects, we have an open source class for I/O. We also offer streaming and encryption, and then also some music analysis. This audio engine, as some call it, or library, powers billions of app installs and tens of thousands of apps. And we're very pleased with how people react to its performance and how simple it is to use. We're bringing the same underlying digital signal processing technology actually to networking and cryptographics, but again, not the subject of today's talk. Currently, we offer 46 builds for 6 OSs on 4 architectures. And this is the current offering that most of you are familiar with if you're familiar with our product. But moving to the web, making Superpowered available on the web via WebAssembly as a JavaScript framework, we'll be also supporting all browsers as well. So we think this is pretty exciting. There's a whole, we argue the browser is the most well-distributed software platform in the world, and bringing interactive high-performance audio to the browser should yield a lot of benefit to both developers as well as consumers. One of the things we also do is we maintain the world's largest public mobile audio latency database. We have 2 open source latency, test applications, one for Android, one for iOS. And allows anyone to simply download the apps, test their devices and record the round trip latency. Completely open source. You can download the code. You have access to the code, and you can compile it yourself if you wanted to. It's a very good resource, especially if you're doing research on which models you might want to support and which models you may not want to support, especially on Android. Coming soon, we will also offer a browser latency test. Right now, being able to deliver and deploy audio-centric applications with near native or native performance in the browser is going to become, we believe, very, very important in the future. It's going to change the kind of economics of software development and obviously expand the platform targets. And so to engender that, to give developers more data about which browser hardware combinations work best, we're going to be releasing a browser latency test in a matter of months. Now I'm going to turn it over to Gabor, and Gabor will take it over from here.
Yeah, let's get a little bit more technical. So WebAssembly is tightly coupled with WebAudio for audio-centric applications. WebAudio is a very important framework and a W3C standard for all browsers. The most important feature of WebAudio is the audio graph API. So how you can connect audio nodes together and to connect this graph to an audio I/O, such as the microphone input or speaker output. So WebAudio is a super important audio framework for every web browser. However, WebAudio is only a shell, is only a graph API. It has some other features, but they are not very consistent through the web browsers, very implementation specific. So only the graph API and the audio I/O is really important here. Now the problem with WebAudio is that actually processing the audio in JavaScript is slow, because JavaScript is not a native language. It's an interpreted language running in a virtual machine, bytecode, stuff like that. So it's not fast. Native is fast, JavaScript is slow. So how do we do high performance audio processing in the browser in WebAudio? WebAssembly is the answer. WebAssembly has the promise of near native performance in the web browser. And so it's a great tool for high performance audio processing, or at least that's the promise of WebAssembly. And so WebAudio plus WebAssembly, we believe that WebAudio plus WebAssembly will become the de facto audio web framework in the near future. So within months, not even years. And therefore, the Superpowered JavaScript Audio SDK, which utilizes both WebAudio and WebAssembly, might be a very good target for your next audio development. Superpowered plus WebAssembly, what do we offer, or what will we offer? So Superpowered will be a JavaScript framework. It will not be a complex WebAssembly component which you develop in WebAssembly and you go through a very complex building and compiling process. No, we would like to offer it as simple as a JavaScript framework. And it's not just as simple as a JavaScript framework, but it's actually a JavaScript framework, just like jQuery. But all the audio computing happens in WebAssembly for high performance. So that's very, very important part of this. And it's also very easy to import because it's just one file. You don't need to import a lot of files. It will not have a huge payload on your web application or your web page. It's just one include, and its size is not too big compared to the features it will offer. Also, it's very important to talk about browser support because we are running in browsers. Unfortunately, almost every major browser's public version, which everyone can download and use without any beta or dev access, supports WebAssembly and WebAudio, and therefore happily runs Superpowered JavaScript. except Edge. You know, Microsoft Edge is now undergoing a huge change, that Microsoft is abandoning their old audio and not audio now, their old browser engine, and they are using Chromium inside, which is the same as Google Chrome. I mean the engine part. So with Microsoft Edge, you need to download the dev channel version, and everything will work. Earlier versions do not support WebAssembly. So that's the only exception here. And we tested this on both Windows, macOS, Linux, and also iOS and Android. So while the desktop version of Safari is quite different to the mobile version of Safari on iOS, fortunately not in this case, it just offers the same support for WebAssembly. So Superpowered will be able to run in every JavaScript context, not just on the main thread, in the main scope, but in any background thread, because you can create background threads in JavaScript now using the Worklet API. It's a standard, well-known JavaScript API on every browser. Superpowered also works both with the new audio Worklet standard and also the deprecated script processor node standard. There are basically two WebAudio standards. The oldest one is the script processor node, which processed audio on the main thread, which is not a good idea because audio dropouts might happen. But the new, it's like 2 years old, audio Worklet API puts audio processing into a high priority audio processing thread where it should be, and so Superpowered can run that there too. But unfortunately, we have some bad news. WebAssembly is still a work in progress. It's not a work in progress by us, but it's a work in progress by the WebAssembly committee. So all the major web browsers support it, but some important features are not available yet, such as background threading inside WebAssembly. So you can put WebAssembly into a background thread spawned by JavaScript, but you cannot spawn a background thread inside WebAssembly. And that prevents us to offer some features of Superpowered in the initial Superpowered JavaScript Audio SDK release. And I believe you will not cry on audio buffers now, but time stretching and the advanced audio player, I guess those are a bit painful, but we are working on those. So our goal is a full, complete release. The good news that we were able to release most of the features of the Superpowered Audio SDK, including all the effects and the spatializer, and every single feature in Superpowered Simple.h, such as format conversion, volume changes, stuff like that. Also FFT and the bandpass filter bank will be available, but I just moved back. The full analyzer class will not be available in the initial release. It will come later. And we do also offer I/O, setting up I/O and web audio stuff. I will show you in a quick demo soon. So timeline and demo. Let's check this. I just go to, wow, isn't that only? So we have a small demo URL for you. Check it out. It's superpowered.com/wasm-demo. Here, it's highlighted here in the browser's address bar. It's a very, very simple demo. It's very ugly as well because there is no CSS here. So check the source. You can see the web page on the left side. You can see the source on the right side. And as you can see, it's a really super simple web page because the most important part is in JavaScript. So what this demo does, and I will not launch it because it might kill this webinar, and also it might have a huge audio feedback. it will record my microphone input, and in real time it will put a reverb and a filter on it, and it will output the audio on the speaker. So how do we do this? Here's the main.js. This is the main JavaScript file, and it's a really simple one. Please look at the end of the file where I create the superpowered module here in this part. And so it creates an instance of the superpowered module. It's really simple. And when it's ready here, then it does a few event listener stuff. So when you click on a button here, that something meaningful will happen. That's all it does. And when you click the button, the toggle audio function is called. And when the state is not running here, then Superpowered will help you creating an audio context. So you don't need to use the browser-specific API to set up an audio context, which might be different across web browsers. But Superpowered will create you one. And then Superpowered will ask the user's permission with get user media for audio. It's, again, still the same W3C API. And then if it was successful, then the on-stream created function is called. In on-stream created, we ask Superpowered to create one audio node for us here. And the audio node's source code will be here in processor.js. We will take a peek of that in a minute. And when it could create the audio node, so here this little function will receive the new node. What it does is it creates an audio input node that is defaults to the microphone. It connects this newly created audio node to the input and to the output, and it begins audio I/O. That's it when it does. And also we have this processor.js, and I show you the source code of that. It's a really simple one. So here's a class, a processor class implementing the Superpowered module audio worker processor class. It has a kind of constructor function, the onReady. And in this, we create a Superpowered reverb instance, and we create a Superpowered filter instance. And then here's the process audio function. This is the audio processing callback function. And this is where the very typical reverb and filter process happens. And we also do have some message handling from the main scope to set the wet parameter of the reverb and the frequency parameter of the filter. So this is all the code you need. As you can see, it's full JavaScript, nothing else. It's as easy to use as any other JavaScript framework. And you can also use any JavaScript framework with this. It will have absolutely no conflict with a third-party JavaScript framework. So you can still use jQuery if you like, or Vue, or I don't know what kind of fancy frameworks are there today with JavaScript. That situation changes every month, I think. Let's get back to Keynote, because I see we have a few questions already, but we have like 3 more slides. So when will this be available? This is an undocumented release already. So this is available for you now at this URL. And you can kind of steal the superpowered.js file from this URL and use it for your own example project. But it's a non-documented release. We are not ready with the documentation yet. Documentation will be ready this August. And so we will have a beta release in somewhere in August. And later, as browser and WebAssembly support improves, we will bring time stretching and decoders and the players and everything which is inside the Superpowered Audio SDK into JavaScript.
All right. All right. Thank you, Gabor. So I know we have some questions. We're gonna try to hurry through this and and get to your questions, because I think that's the most interesting part of the presentation. But so, we'll be quite frank. So what we'd like to do is we really want to empower developers to do interesting, novel, fun things. They don't have to be fully cooked projects, but it's interesting things that showcase the power of Superpowered and WebAssembly. So to that effect, what we want to offer folks who are serious about launching apps with this is a free 1-year license to the Superpowered Audio JavaScript SDK. In return, any project you launch with that would have to have some attribution, a link, and of course a valid license key. The idea, though, is that we, in August or September, we can bring to market a number of apps, interesting apps that, again, don't have to be 100% spit and polish, don't have to be 100% production ready, but at least suggest what's possible and where this is heading. And so to that end, we want to support people who are taking this seriously and want to launch apps. We've already spoken to I believe a number of people who have registered for this webinar. And again, we will also be doing a demo app, kind of a more polished demo app with actually a famous musician. He's very excited about what WebAssembly could do for developers, and so we'll also be launching a really fun app that we hope gets some attention as well. And we'll be also, our investors at Techstars will be helping us with a big media push around this. Techstars Music is one of our investors. The folks there are very excited about this technology and where it can go. So let's get to questions. Let's, Gabo, what we
yeah. I'm just trying to. So we have some chat. Let's check the chat first. It doesn't work for me. Young Code Prom is awesome. Please use Chrome. Works well on Firefox. Yeah. So can the license key be encrypted or hidden from the user inspecting the website? I'm afraid no, it cannot. Just going back to the demo here for experimentation, you don't need actually a license key, but just use this string here. Example license key will expire on next update. So you don't need to register license key, especially as we have not finished with our license key system yet. So sorry about that. I'm not sure why on some browsers it didn't work for you. Perhaps you need to update your web browser because I'm 100% sure that Chrome 74 is not the latest. Let me check my Chrome, which is a public version of Chrome. But 74. Yeah, it's 74. Then I don't understand. And as you can see, I'm on Mac OS and Chrome 74. So we need to suss out a few issues, I guess. Again, a question. Consider most web audio libraries are free. What will be getting future paid version that sets it apart?
So it's good. So Ian had a question about what most web audio libraries are free. What will be in the future that paid sets apart? So it's a good question. One is, number one, we believe our performance is singular. Of course, there's other third-party libraries out there that are also performant. But in terms of the economics and licensing of Superpowered, we actually haven't worked that out yet. We're not quite sure how much of our business this cannibalizes, quite frankly. I think it's going to cannibalize some of it, and that's healthy, and that's acceptable. So we are still working on figuring out what does a paid version look like. But rest assured, we want to drive growth on this, and we'll price it competitively. We also may offer a free version as well. Matt Abionetti asks, how will Superpowered.js compare to Soul.dev? The answer, Matt, is we don't know. Haven't seen Soul.dev before, but thank you. We will take a look at it.
Chrome View on Android. So yes, you will be able to use this technology both on a website and in a web app, because web apps are having full browser instances inside. So a Chrome view is a full Chromium instance which can run this technology, yes. Will it have better latency than WebAudio? No, I don't think so, because any user-land application has the same constraints. It doesn't matter if it's a web browser or a native application. So should you go with the NDK? At this very moment, yes. In the future, maybe not. Let's hope that the WebAssembly performance, which is just like 1.5x lower than native, will suffice. Will Superpowered Web support Ambisonics? Yes and no. We do not have an Ambisonics framework. We do have the spatializer, and using the spatializer, you can create an Ambisonics environment, but we do not offer features to parse and read Ambisonic formats, stuff like that. So it's not an out-of-the-box support, sorry. I still worried on some folks could not run the.
Could not run. Yeah. So yeah, we'll take a look at this. This is good actually, because we have some. Obviously, this is why we haven't released the beta just yet. But this gives a little homework to do on the technology. Make sure that we release a bug-free beta.
It would be awesome if you could send me to Gabor@superpowered.com some error reports. This is the web. We do not have crash reports anymore here, but some logs that I can work with and reproduce your issues and then fix all those.
Yeah. Could be, it's going to be, I'm not sure.
Is there a plan to have Superpowered be also a framework for one's own DSP nodes? It's not a plan, it works. Superpowered sets up standard web audio nodes. So in here, this function create audio node creates a web audio node, and it's connected to a web audio context, and these methods here connecting the nodes together, it's pure web audio. So it's a standard framework, web audio on every browser is there. You can use your own DSP as you could always with Superpowered.
Any more questions? These are good questions, so thank you for these, by the way. We're also, if you have any, we are recording this, so we will actually make this available. So if this is interesting, we'll send out the link so this can be viewed again. And we have another question from Michelangelo. Any forecast for the advanced audio player coming to?
Wow. That's a great. It's like forecasting weather, but not for the next week, but for the next month. Quite impossible. So the things holding us back is background threads support in WebAssembly, which is only available in one very developer build of Chrome, and there are some memory allocation issues as well. So I guess the advanced audio player, it might take even a year, unfortunately, because it depends on the browser, folks, not us.
Henri asks, will there be a newsletter about Superpowered Web Audio? Well, we have an email list, so if you come to the website superpowered.com and you download the SDK, you are automatically added to the email list, and we release all new news and updates and features on that list. Esteban asks,
the audio quality is similar to that of Superpowered for smartphones? Yes! Superpowered audio quality is identical on all platforms, including the web. So you will get exactly the same audio in a Mac OS application using Superpowered, or in the Chrome web browser on an Android phone. You will get exactly the same audio. do you have any ideas, suggestions about handling playback of local audio, asked by Peter Woods. In WebAudio, you can create, I believe it's called generator nodes. And so those nodes can output audio, which may be loaded from a URL or from local files. Although accessing local files is a bit tricky in web browsers, because basically the only reliable local file access API is the input button, the file selector button. But I believe that web browsers are not really able to browse your local folders. Although with WebAssembly, that requirement will be huge by other developers, because obviously WebAssembly is a technology very exciting, not just for audio, but for any kind of application. So developers can kind of escape from the app stores. So all the playing field will be open again. And therefore, there will be a huge push for local file browsing, I guess, for any web browser.
Great. If
does it support AS or MIDI devices? I'm not sure what do you mean under AS or USB. Okay, USB MIDI devices. So the web MIDI API, I believe that exists in web browsers. So it's an existing technology. At least it's available in Chrome. So we do not need to support that, because it's a working API.
if anyone has any more questions, any idea of license cost? No. So Peter, no, we're not quite sure what license costs right now. That's why we want to open it up and offer a year free, which includes support. This is one, again, as I mentioned earlier in the webinar. It may kind of take us reconstructing our licensing business model somewhat, but this is something we want to make it competitive. We want to price it aggressively so that people can use it and we can drive a lot of growth and interesting applications.
Tutorial for dummies. I believe so, because
actually we should. So Aaron asks, do you plan to make what do you mean by dummies? So I guess the question is, when you want a tutorial for dummies, what does that entail? We're familiar with the expression, but what does that mean specifically? What would you like to see us do in a tutorial?
I believe, so there is this certain blog post style, the tutorial style, where there's just one line of code, then explanation, then it extends it by 2 lines of code, and explains it, stuff like that. I believe so. I believe that we should create some, because now we are going to JavaScript territory. So we cannot expect developers to understand very complex C++ stuff like before. We have to, I guess.
Yeah. So looks like you just convinced the CTO that we need to do a tutorial for dummies. Good job. Cool. What other questions do we have before we end today? Let me see. Actually, Gabor, can you go back to the presentation real quick?
Oh, to the presentation. Yeah. Yep. This is the presentation. Yeah. Which slide do you want to see?
That one's fine.
Okay.
So in the meantime, you guys can email, anyone can email myself. So that's very simple, patrick@superpowered.com. You can email Gabor directly, gabor@superpowered.com. For general support requests, the support email is right there, support@superpowered.zs.com. That was a good one for because it gets put into a ticketing system.
Yeah, so we have one more question by Peter. A few months ago, you were concerned about WASM because it can be decompiled. What's changed? We spent much more time with WASM, and we see how it can be decompiled, and we had some time to play with it, to compile some superpowered code, and then we saw how does it look like in a decompiler, WASM decompiler, and that's fine for us. It's like disassembling native code, not very readable for highly optimized code, so we're fine with it.
Good question. Good question. Well, thank you for your time. We wanted to make this quick and to the point, so it's been about 35 minutes. Again, the demo URL https superpowered.com/WASM demo, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's correct here.
Yep.
HTTPS is very important because it's mandatory by web browsers for audio worklets and stuff like that.
Cool. And then what we'll do is we'll put this video up on YouTube. We'll do a blog post. We'll also put the slides up. And so this can be revisited if need be. We want to hear from you. We want to hear people doing exciting things. I think there's a lot to be done, here and on the business side, like Gabor mentioned, there looks like a big opportunity will open up for developers to launch, native-like apps outside the App Store paradigm, right? And if WebAssembly is as well supported as we think it is, or we hope it is, that could afford some, big opportunities, folks. I know there's already a company that does pretty much a fully loaded DAW solely inside the browser.
It's not that fully loaded, but
still, it's a big step.
Yeah.
And so, I think the game people are looking at this, and so there's a lot I think that can be done as well. So anyway, we're excited. We want to affect positive change in this direction. So we want to hear from you guys. And again, thank you for your time, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.